You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
Good afternoon, everybody. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm your host, Matt Holloway. Today, we really have to wonder, has the world gone mad? And I think Raul Julia can probably say it better than I can. We have a lot to unpack. President Mugabe of Zimbabwe seems to refuse to step down despite being ousted by his own party and the military. And how much more news is out there that our country is willfully ignoring in favor of wondering whether or not a Senate candidate committed statutory rape. And the sexual harassment and molestation accusations keep rolling in to Hollywood, New York, and D.C. One has to wonder, what's the other hand doing? We'll talk about the news they're not reporting. And all the news that's not being covered by the mainstream media here on the HoloNet, on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around. Show today. Huge. You guys are going to enjoy it. This is going to be one of our first, pure YouTube shots, too.
Fellow citizens, recent events have imposed upon the patriotic people of this country a responsibility and a duty greater than that of any since the Civil War.
It is the common people of the world that are interested in this business. They know when we have war, it is they that have to bear the burden. It's their sisters and mothers and daughters that have to wait, trembling, to hear the news.
We are called as a people to give testimony in the sight of the world to our faith that the future shall belong to the free. Since this century's beginning, a time of tempest has seemed to come upon the continents of the earth.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. And let me remind you also that moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue.
I want the people of America to be able to work less for the government and more for themselves. I want them to have the rewards of their own industry. This is the chief meaning of freedom. Until we can reestablish a condition under which the earnings of the people can be kept by the people, we are bound to suffer a very severe and distinct curtailment of our liberty.
You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
Lanterns authorization code accepted. Logging in. Your access to the HoloNet has been approved. Please stand by. listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
Good afternoon. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from beautiful, sunny Phoenix, Arizona. Holy cow, it actually got under 80 today! Yay! I'm Matt Holloway, your host, and I did want to direct you to a quick local story before we dive headlong into the utter crap storm that the media is not showing you this week in favor of who's doing things with who 40 years ago. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but we're going to make a whole big kerfuffle about it anyway. You know, we're going to talk about Al Franken, Cuomo. We're going to talk about Ray Moore. Now they're going into, saying, oh, well, President Trump said grab her by the, a year ago. And all this crap that's going through the mainstream media right now to the lowest common denominator because sex sells. Meanwhile,
has the planet gone mad? I have seen evil. I have seen horror. I have seen the unholy maggots which feast in the dark recesses of the human soul. I have seen all this, but until today.
APS and the Arizona Corporation Commission, this one goes to you. I have seen all this, but until today, I have not seen you. That's right. After much ado, after months and months of stories, not to mention ones covered by a good friend of mine, Chris Merrill of 550 KFYI here in Phoenix, the Arizona Corporation Commission passed in a walk a $95 million rate hike for Arizona Power Service customers. Yeah, that's right. The nice controlled, regulated monopoly that exists here in the state of Arizona assured the public of an approximate $6 increase in their monthly rates. Well, I can personally assure you that here at the HoloNet studios, also known as my freaking residence, where me, my dear sweet wife, and our 3 beautiful baby boys live, our power bill went up by $22 a month. And I'm not alone. Oh no, I'm not alone at all. The stories keep coming in. Looking at AZ Central, APS rate hike shocks customers. Loophole could allow rate rehearings. Listen to the hubris that is involved here. Okay? This is from the azcentral.com by Ryan Randazzo of The Republic. He writes, Arizona Public Service Co. customers are reporting much higher bills than expected after the state's utility regulators allowed the company to raise rates in mid-August. APS had projected the residential bill average would increase by approximately $6 a month, or 4.5%. But some customers are saying their bills increased significantly more than $6. Like, me. One resident, Ron Gedling, wrote to the regulators after getting his first new bill, "This is absolutely the worst robbery of my money I have ever seen. I will now be going hungry in order to make APS a little richer." And this is just a couple stories, okay? An APS representative says the higher bills are likely the result of higher temperatures over the summer, expressing confidence in the utility's projections on the impact of customers, and the company's new rate plans may help lower bills once customers switch over, officials said. Now, I want you to listen to the unmitigated gall of APS here. Beth McFall, consumer advocate for APS, said that despite complaints that the increase is more than advertised, the average increase across the more than 1 million customers should be $6 a month. Until the rates have been in place a year, it's not possible to determine whether the average is true to that figure. We are very confident in those numbers, McFall said. Hotter weather has caused higher bills, she said. I would say for really the entire summer, but before the rates going into effect, we received more calls than typical. Now, this gets even worse the more they talk. The more that Beth McFall said to the press, it just seemed to get worse. She went on to say, I believe customers can see a savings by switching over to a new rate plan. We have had some existing customers change over to the new rates. The new rates are giving customers the ultimate control over their energy usage. The Republic went on to point out, but most customers are not on the new rate schedules, except people who are new APS customers since August 19th. McFall suggested customers log on to their accounts at aps.com and review what suggestions the utility has for savings on their bills. Quote, it is so critical for them to educate themselves on how they use energy, McFall said. It really is an asset to them to understand how they use energy. Think about that for a minute. Most of your laymen, myself included, can understand fairly easily that $6 and $22 are not the same. And if it's occurring to this many people already, to the point that Robert Burns from the Arizona Corporation Commission, who has been absolutely mired in corruption investigation, not Burns particularly, but the Corporation Commission as a whole, doesn't occur to anybody that maybe something's wrong here. That maybe APS got a little bit of a sweetheart deal. What with the ongoing FBI investigations into the dark money that flowed into the AZ Corporation Commission election last go-around, and the out-and-out denial of an internal investigation which was in progress. Again, going to AZ Central. Corporation Commissioner Lori Roberts, saying Arizona voters have a chance to demand a dark money disclosure through a proposed constitutional amendment. And this doesn't seem to be picking up too much steam here. A $3.2 million dark money campaign catapulted a pair of utility-friendly candidates onto the Arizona Corporation Commission. It's widely believed that Arizona Public Service was behind the dark money campaign. But of course, voters aren't entitled to know about that. And you wonder why the Corporation Commission just raised your utility rates, allowing APS to scoop up another $95 million a year. Kids, it's time to wake up and smell the roses. Lori Roberts from the Republic doing some great reporting because the Arizona Corporation Commission is rushing to defend APS yet again. The utility spent $4 million in 2016 to ensure the election of Commissioners Boyd Dunn and Andy Tobin, and also Burns, but that's only because the prospect of the two, Bill Mundell and Tom Chabin as regulators, was enough to give APS CEO Don Brandt a nasty case of hives, apparently, according to Lori Roberts. It's astonishing to me. Astonishing that Arizona regulators can get away with this. That in one of the most defiantly conservative states in the union, this kind of out-of-control government abuse, this kind of monopoly run amok, is actually allowed to not only survive, but thrive. I was on Twitter today, a little pissed off about my own power bill, of course, but when I got wind of the larger problem, I jumped up and tweeted. I tweeted the Arizona Corporation Commission and also the governor, Governor Doug Ducey, the Deuce, that if he values his job, he needs to make something of this. He needs to make good of this. He needs to do this for his constituents. I mean, AZ Corporation Commission, if you're listening, folks, kiss your political careers goodbye over this one. Because you just demonstrated you are thoroughly and completely for sale. In fact, I invited the leeches at the Arizona Corporation Commission to cut a check for the $22 a month increase on my bill. And I described it as criminal. And I'm in better shape than many. Unlike the gentleman who I referred to in the first story, Phoenix customer Mr. Gedling, who said, "This is literally taking food directly out of my mouth." So ponder that. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to jump into the news that the mainstream media has been too busy telling you about who is diddling who or who did what to tell you. The world has indeed gone mad. It's on fire all around us. But we're too wrapped up in the sexcapades of DC, Hollywood, and New York to care. You're listening to the HoloNet Podcast on Lanterns Media Network. I'm Matt Holloway. Stick around.
America molested by Ronald McDonald. It's true. Has it happened to you? 'Cause it starts with a dime and it ends with a dollar. Makes me wanna get up and to holler. Hey, what has it happened to you? 'Cause it's happening all around and no one's making a sound about it. We gotta take back America. 1, 2, 3. Take back America, you and me. Take back America or we're all screwed.
Here at the New Conservative Resistance, we understand if you don't get enough of the HoloNet. So, we've made it easy for you. To find the latest on Matt Holloway, whether it be blogs or radio podcasts, go to theholonet.com or holonet.lanterns.buzz.
Starts with a match and ends up in rubble. I think we could be in for a whole lot of trouble. Hey, what has it happened to you? Because it's happening all around and no one's making a sound. No one's making a sound. No one's making a sound.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
Oh, man. More fun news out of Africa. That's right. In the African nation of Zimbabwe, long embattled dictatorial president since the 1990s, President Robert Mugabe is now refusing to step down despite the fact that the ruling party of Zimbabwe has pretty much kicked him to the curb, and the military has put him into his own home on house arrest. According to The Guardian, the president addressed the nation after the ruling party ZANU-PF gave him a deadline of noon on Monday to resign or face impeachment. Now, to give you a little bit of background here, here's kind of the blow-by-blow. Mugabe is remaining the head of state against all the odds after he's refused to resign as president. He was expected to stand down today in a historic address live on television after conceding to a successful coup d'etat by the military. In a statement delivered in Harare, the native tongue, he claimed the military intervention, which saw him placed under house arrest 4 days ago, was not a challenge to his authority. The army stepped in to block his wife, Grace Mugabe's, attempt to take power. Speaking slowly and occasionally stumbling as you read from the pages, Mugabe talked of the need for solidarity to resolve their nation's problems. He ended his speech by saying he will preside over an upcoming conference of the ruling ZANU-PF party. Now, his defiance comes despite the fact that he was fired by ZANU-PF and in the face of massive public opposition. So we need to keep our eyes on Zimbabwe, because I can think of another country we're likely to end up in. Because what happens to large African nations that experience a power vacuum? I'll give you a hint. It starts with jihadism. Oh, dang, gave it away. Yeah, typically, these nations are a hotbed for radical Islamic jihadist terrorists to assume power. And we thought that we were having problems in Africa before Zimbabwe destabilized. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not speaking in defense of Mugabe. This is a bad dude. I mean, this is a dictator who has not allowed free elections since he was elected in the early 90s. But by no means should we cheer his ouster by a cabal of his own military. This spells fraction, and this spells really a very dangerous time for the people of Zimbabwe. So we should be paying close attention to this as it develops. Make sure that we keep well attuned as it develops in the Central African nation. Another big bit of news out of Arizona that I think is only going to get some play here. Senator Jeff Flake, who announced that he would not seek re-election for office, seems to realize he is now off leash, and he has gone ahead and denounced President Trump and also Senate candidate Roy Moore. Go to that audio real quick.
Party of Roy Moore and Donald Trump. We are toast.
And I'm not blowing smoke at you, but you're the guy that could, just for fun, think how much fun it would be just to be the foil, you know, and to point out what an idiot this guy is.
So those voices you heard there were Senator Jeff Flake and Mayor John Giles of Mesa speaking on a hot mic at a town hall event. And I'm going to play it back for you just one more time because this is kind of surreal. Senator Jeff Flake goes on to say that if we become the party of Roy Moore, we being the GOP, and Donald Trump, we are toast. And then the mayor of Mesa goes on to suggest that Senator Flake could become a foil to them in his time remaining in the Senate, possibly even suggesting a presidential run for the Snowflake resident senator. I'm not kidding, by the way. That's the name of his hometown, Snowflake. And yes, it is so named because his family was pivotal in founding the southern Arizona city. So one moment, please. We're going to run that through one more time.
Roy Moore and Donald Trump. We are toast.
And I'm not blowing smoke at you, but you're the guy that could, just for fun, think how much fun it would be just to be the foil, you know, and to point out what an idiot this guy is.
So yes, in a relatively conservative state, in a relatively conservative city that Mesa has traditionally been, that's the mayor calling the president an idiot. Like him, hate him, probably not a swift move for Mayor John Giles of Mesa. We're going to see how that shakes out. So that has kind of gone unnoticed on the national scale, but I think it is noteworthy that a sitting U.S. senator, a sitting Republican U.S. senator, is pointing out that if we become the party of Roy Moore and Donald Trump, we're toast. You know, I can't say that I disagree with the Roy Moore half of that, but I can point to many Republicans, many conservatives who say that President Donald Trump has done quite a bit of good for the conservative and Republican cause. Has he done some bad things? Absolutely. But I still don't think that the party is toast for aligning with Donald Trump per se. I'm not there yet. Because again, I have to give the man his weather opportunity. And so far, he's made good moves, he's made bad moves. He's surrounded himself with some amazing people in his cabinet. He's made great strides in relations with Asia. I feel that he's kept North Korea on the ropes. I feel that he's done well in isolating ISIS and facilitating their destruction. Now, it'd be nice if he could not make headlines every 5 minutes with something insane that comes from his Twitter account, or that actually comes out of his mouth, but you know, given my druthers, I'd prefer we didn't have to go through all that crap, but what are you going to do? Still, we go on into other news that the country has chosen to blithely ignore. And we go to the Jerusalem Post. And this we're going to dig into a little bit more on the other side of our break here at the half. But I want to point to something that should be an alarm bell moment for you. It should be a klaxon that says danger, danger. An Israeli minister has revealed covert contacts with Saudi Arabia. Okay? And we are seeing growing ties between Saudis and Israelis that are a particularly ominous sign. Saudi Arabia has always maintained that any relations with Israel would hinge on them removing their forces and removing their quote-unquote occupation from previously held Arab lands. But the threat from Hezbollah, from Iran, from the Houthi rebels in Yemen, and ISIS has grown so substantially and so significantly, with the ouster of the Lebanese prime minister substantially alarming the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, that aligning interests with Israel doesn't seem to look that bad for them. Now we'll go to a story from CNBC and the Jerusalem Post. As soon as we come back from this quick break, you're listening to the HoloNet Podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network. From Phoenix, I'm Matt Holloway.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.
I see people coming together not for divisiveness of party or for dichotomy of thought, but for unity in principle. In the principles that founded our nation, that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Today, ladies and gentlemen, those principles are under the sternest attack that we have seen in many generations. It has become a crime in this nation nearly to express a difference in opinion from what is held by your party to be doctrine, from what is purported by the media to be truth. We have an opportunity to reach out to our fellow Americans regardless of their creed and regardless of their political inclinations, and unite as Americans, not as Republicans or as Democrats, as liberals or conservatives, but to unite around the principles that have guided this nation so well. I've covered a lot of stories, but the story that remains untold is the story of America in the 21st century, when we choose to turn back the tide against progressive socialism, when we choose to embrace the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, and the Bill of Rights, when we remember what it is to be Americans. And that principle will not die as long as there is one man, one woman, one child who looks defiantly into the night and says, I am free.
You're listening to the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. The new conservative resistance begins right here, right now.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The Millennial Conservative Resistance begins here.
And we're back. You're listening to the HoloNet podcast here on the Lanterns Media Network from Phoenix, Arizona. I'm Matt Holloway. Quick story I want to check out. I wanted to send a little bit of love out to one of our Lanterns Buzz writers. David Herman Lassane put out a story, Can You Hear the Bell Toll? Because as Metallica teaches us, for whom the bell tolls, time marches on. He writes, 5 simple words popped into my head after being exposed to current news from the media I had up to today done so well, eliminating from my life. Those words are, For Whom the Bell Tolls, written by John Donne in his book Devotions upon Emergent Occasions. He goes on to describe how in his travels from Chicago, back to Chicago, he was exposed to media that he ordinarily does not present himself to. And as a result, he hears about more people being raped, mugged, or shot and killed in Chicago. Our beloved president has now been put on a hit list for insulting the Rocket Man from North Korea. That's right, if you didn't catch that this week, the people of North Korea in absentia have sentenced President Donald Trump to death. That's right, they sentenced our president in absentia to death for insulting their leader. And as he escaped the room and went to another part of the house, he visited his emails. One of them was an article from The Sun, a UK-based newspaper. There was an interesting article that caught his eye. It was a letter about the warning to humanity signed by 15,000 scientists about how the future of the world will be if we don't change our habits and stop polluting the atmosphere, using up natural resources, overpopulating the world, destroying our food supply. What is this garbage that has been coming out of late? And again, this is crap that we're kind of not paying attention to because we're so soaked up in Roy Moore. Did he do it or didn't he do it? Was it with a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old, or an 18-year-old, or a 14-year-old? Was it in a car? Was it at a restaurant? Did you sign his yearbook? Did you not sign the yearbook? And then we hear about, oh, God, Cuomo did it too. And, Donald Trump was talking about grabbing by the... And, why are we all up in arms now? And you got people on the right saying, well, Bill Clinton was doing this to Juanita Broderick way back when. And we're all so wrapped up in this sexual harassment, molestation, who raped who, didn't rape who, media firestorm. We're not paying attention. We are not paying attention. We are in a thorough state of information overload. And that's the way they like it. Because snuck in there beginning of the week, I know the Blaze hit on it. A couple of other pundits like myself have covered it. But NBC actually posted an op-ed piece wherein they went into detail explaining that the best thing you can do is not have a lot of children. As a father of 3, hopefully someday a father of 4, because we still want to try for a daughter, I took that a little personally. But I really have to hand it to David. Can you hear the bell toll? Because it is ringing in my ears. With the simple amount of the sheer quantity of news that we are ignoring on a daily basis. Things that are pivotal. Things that will change our world, that are edging us close to global warfare. 3 hours ago, the Jerusalem Post, an Israeli minister, openly revealed covert contacts with Saudi Arabia. According to Haaretz, Israel has secret contacts with Saudi Arabia, senior minister tells. RT, Russia Today, God help us for reading them. Israeli minister reveals contacts with Saudi Arabia, quote, to curb Iran. How do you think Iran is going to respond to this? How do you think Russia is going to respond to this? Russia, who's been screaming along with Syria for the rest of the world to get the heck out of Syria now that ISIS is essentially no factor. They're asking, why are you still in Syria? Why are you still interfering with Bashar al-Assad's handling of internal issues within his nation? Well, one could say because Bashar al-Assad's a bloody mass-murdering dictator. There's that. I mean, that's always been a good reason to interfere in a country, historically speaking. But this is the news that we are blind to. And this is the price of the 24-hour news cycle and the constant stream of social media-fueled news. They give us what we want to consume, what we have demonstrated a willingness to consume en masse, and sex sells, baby. Nothing sells harder than an Alabama senatorial candidate getting accused of doing something that just ain't right with a girl that's just too young. Nothing sells like mudslinging and sex, and here we have both. As I've said in previous podcasts, I don't know if he did it. I don't think anybody's going to find out ever if he did it, except for him and the women. If he did, in fact, have sexual misconduct with an underage woman, with a girl, he absolutely needs to step aside. And any legal steps that can possibly be taken against him should be. But right now, as the immortal Limp Bizkit once said, it's all about the he said, she said bull. And I think we better quit talking that spit, punk. So come and get it. Sorry, I had to do it. But that's where we're at now. We are ignoring the signs all around us that something big is coming. Saudi officials recommended, nay, ordered their civilians, their nationals, to leave Lebanon. As have the UAE, Dubai, ordered their people to get the heck out of Dodge. Because apparently Hezbollah has taken over so strongly in Lebanon that the prime minister fled the nation to Saudi Arabia and resigned promptly. What does that tell you? It tells me that Lebanon has destabilized. It tells me that Syria is still unstable. And it's such to the point that the Saudis are looking at Jerusalem and getting cozy. Now, I want to paint you a picture. If Lebanon should collapse and Iran brings forces in to back them up, Israel will not respond lightly to Iranian military forces being that close to their border again. So, you can count on an Israeli military response. Furthermore, you can count on a Saudi military response. Now, the Saudis and Israelis, both American allies. The Syrians, Russian allies. So, we have prior experience of what happens when you draw the superpowers of the world into a small area where there's a lot of internal fighting between tribal mentalities here. It's called a world war. And it's also taking place where all the oil is. In the most economically unstable America, I think, that has been seen since the Cold War. What would happen to you? Think about you if gas went above $5 a gallon tomorrow on Monday. I'd be pretty much screwed because I live about 40 miles away from my place of primary employ with about 80 miles a car on my day. 80 miles a day on my car. $5 a day gas cripples the state of Arizona, I can assure you that, because here there is no real good public transportation if you live sufficiently far west or sufficiently far east. Unless you live like within 25 miles in the middle of Phoenix, you ain't getting to work. Or you're making life decisions at the pump, as Cat Williams once attested. $5 a gallon gas will break America's economy in half like a toothpick. Especially given the fact that the pricing war between Russia and the Saudis has essentially broken the fracking market beyond repair here in the U.S. So think about all that while we're hand-wringing and going, oh, God, I don't know. Are we going to lose that one seat in Alabama because more won't step aside? And did Senator Al Franken really do that? Is his apology genuine? Is that good enough? Is he going to get barred from the Senate? We need to keep our eye on the ball, kids. Because we are so self-involved and so easily distracted as a nation. The world is changing all around us. And we will not be prepared when the hammer comes down. Now on to some lighter things. I'm going to take one final quick break, then we're going to go on to 24 Trend. That's right, trends24.in, the United States. We're going to see what's trending on Twitter. I know today I've been watching 2 Twitter tags. Hashtag things politicians shouldn't say, and hashtag International Men's Day. Wasn't aware that was a thing, especially in our ultra-feminized world, such as it is. We're going to talk about that when we come back here on the HoloNet Podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Stick around. Hey everyone, this is Matt Holloway, and I hope you're enjoying our podcast so far. It's been exciting putting this together for you, and I'm looking forward to many more to come. I did want to let you know that in setting up the HoloNet and getting everything launched here, we've gone ahead and set up a page on patreon.com. Now, if you haven't heard of Patreon, Patreon is a website that's similar to other crowdfunding sources that allows you to support on a month-to-month basis those sources, those artists, and those groups that you really care about and that you're passionate about. And I hope that we can ignite passion in a lot of people to become more involved in the political process, and also to become involved in the conversation and to keep that political dialogue alive. So I'd like to humbly ask you today to consider becoming a patron of the HoloNet on Patreon.com, and you can access that at Patreon.com/TheHoloNet. We have various levels of patronage. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month, which unlocks exclusive content for the Patreon community, such as a feed of patron-only content. Then you have a $5 option, which gives you behind-the-scenes access to blog about the different inspirations that we have. It'll give you access to patrons-only polling. And then we have a $10 option, which gives you a signed digital poster plus everything else. $20 option, which gives you name in the credits on the site, and all other rewards. And we even have a segment sponsor package available on Patreon, which is $125 a month, which entitles you and your business to a 60-second ad as a segment sponsor during the podcast, of course, subject to content approval. So if you would like to become a patron of the HoloNet, we would be greatly thankful to you, and it's going to go toward a solid cause of generating this sort of millennial constitutional conservative content that is so lacking in our media today. So thank you for your time, for your consideration, and for being a part of the HoloNet. Here we hold the line against the night, and the millennial conservative resistance begins here.
Allied reinforcements have arrived from the west.
You're listening to the HoloNet on Lanterns Media Network. The millennial conservative resistance begins here.
And we're back and ready to wrap this one up here on the HoloNet podcast on the Lanterns Media Network. Did want to let some of you know that there was a very interesting event down in downtown Tucson just yesterday. It was an awards ceremony that was attended by a couple of people who I've worked with before with the Patriot movement here in Arizona. It was a ceremony in which Steve Bannon was actually presented an award. And hang on, I'm just going to pull that information up right here. It was, Breitbart editor Steve Bannon. Oh, goodness me. I've lost the page. No! It was at the Marriott. Here we go. At the Brian Terry Courage Awards and Benefit Dinner, the special guest recipient was Steve Bannon. Mr. Bannon was recognized for his work with Breitbart to expose the horrific Fast and Furious gun-running scandal led by Presidents Obama and A.G. Holder, which ended with the tragic assassination of Border Patrol agent Terry. The varied groups of Tucson leftists, progressives, resist Antifa, and also by any means necessary were on hand and were protesting, and we actually have some audio from that display that we're going to put on for you real fast. Hang on just a second here.
Where?
Now the voices that you're hearing in that video are from Lisa Antone and Jennifer Caminiti Harrison of the Patriot Movement. Daisy, give you a couple more seconds of that audio.
Take your job! Pay for your welfare!
Now, this event took place, as I said, down in Tucson at the Marriott, and the voices you heard there were a couple of the Patriot Movement AZ who were counter-protesting a massive line of protesters on the other side of the road who were there from Antifa, who were also there from, By Any Means Necessary and those kind of groups, and the local progressives and communists who live and work out of Tucson. And that's another story, yet another story, that completely went under the media radar this week. So make sure you're paying attention. Make sure you watch your sources closely. And I do want to thank the Patriot Movement AZ for being able to capture that audio and video. That's available on their Facebook page. That's Facebook group Patriots. I believe that's Arizona Patriots. Let me see here. Facebook.com/groups/Patriot Movement AZ if you want to check them out. They also have a linked group, True Conservative TV and Patriot Movement AZ. If you want to like and follow the HoloNet podcast, you can find us on Twitter at Matt D. Holloway at the HoloNet, Facebook.com/HoloNet. And if you want to donate to the Patreon, please donate to the Patreon. This is a hard show to do, and nobody's paying me. That's patreon.com/theholonet. And you can also donate to Lanterns. That's patriot.com/lanterns. Now, wrapping it all up here, I want to end this on a bit of a happier note. And I'm really, really trying to, but the news just doesn't let me. Oh, God. Do yourselves a favor, folks. Pay attention to your news, but make sure you break away from it every now and again. We're coming up on Thanksgiving. So most people, and myself included, we're going to enjoy a nice 3-day work week. We're going to have Thursday and Friday off. Take time to be thankful for your family and your friends. If you're religious like I am, give thanks to God for everything that you've seen this year, for every moment that you've had with family, for everyone that you love, for all your friends, for all the good times in life. And don't let what you see on social media and the news media overshadow the beauty that there is in this life. The friendships, the relationships, the really important things. And as we go into the holiday season, and as we go into these troubling times ahead, the most important things we can keep near to our hearts are our friends and family. And it's crucial that we do not forsake each other for difference of opinion on one thing or another. Blood is thicker than water. On that note, if you have that one uncle across from the table who likes to wax political and wants to tell you how Stalin was an okay guy and how everybody misjudged Mussolini, if you have that nephew who comes to the table with that nice $400 Antifa coat that he purchased at Barney's in New York, take it a little easy on him just for one day. Remember that they're family and friends first, and that everything else happens after. Remember to be human beings. Because as my very good friend, who has always been a great source of information for me, Jonathan Dunn, the Freedom's Disciple on the Blaze, always says, America is great because Americans are good. On that note, I'll say to you from Phoenix, Arizona, good night. God bless you. And God bless the United States of America. Good night, everybody.
You're listening to the Lanterns Radio Network. We are the network dedicated to empowering the individual, illuminating the truth, defending American exceptionalism, and inspiring future generations. Stay connected and get involved at lanterns.buzz for great radio. Get commentary and news of the day. Lanterns.buzz.